The last of the fire's sun hung low over a desolate landscape of rust and ruin, painting the horizon in hues of blood and ash. Dust swirled in lazy spirals across what had once been a bustling highway, now cracked and overtaken by weeds. Miles of skeletal buildings loomed in the distance, monuments to a world that had forgotten its own glory. Jonah lit his fire carefully. The flint sparked against dry bark, catching on a nest of kindling he'd scavenged earlier that morning. Flames flickered to life, small and fragile, their dance defiant against the encroaching darkness. He crouched by the fire, his face weathered and scarred, eyes haunted by years spent in solitude. He was the last. He had known that for a long time now. There had been rumors of underground bunkers, distant colonies untouched by the virus that swept through humanity like a Jonah had followed those whispers until his boots wore thin and his hope even thinner. One by one, every promise turned to ash. He buried the last voice 3 years ago, a woman named Isla, whose laughter still echoed in his dreams. They had shared stories under nights filled with stars, daring to imagine futures neither of them would see. When the sickness took her, Jonah couldn't help but to yell and cry for her passing. He dug the grave, kneeling before the fire nearby crackled, its warmth a hollow comfort in his time of need. Jonah leaned back against the frame of an overturned truck, rifle resting across his lap. The world was wild now, reclaimed by nature and shadows that prowled at the edges of his camp. He knew better than to sleep too deeply. Survival demanded vigilance. But tonight, something was different. A sound broke the stillness, a distant hum, low and rhythmic, like machinery, awakening after centuries of silence. Jonah stiffened, heart thudding in his chest. He hadn't heard anything mechanical since the last power grids collapsed. Grabbing his rifle, he rose to his feet, senses sharp. The hum grew louder, closer, cutting through the eerie quiet. It wasn't just a machine, it was a vehicle. Impossible. He moved swiftly, boots silent on the cracked pavement. The hum became a roar, headlights piercing through the gloom. Jonah ducked behind the truck, fingered tight on the trigger, every muscle coiled. The vehicle screeched to a halt not 20 yards away, a sleek black shape that looked far too intact for this broken world. The door hissed open, and a figure stepped out, clad in armor that glinted faintly under the dying light. Jonah's breath caught. "Identify yourself," the figure commanded, voice modulated by some kind of tech. For a moment, Jonah couldn't speak. The sheer shock of seeing another person alive, moving, real, rendered him mute. He lowered his rifle slightly, unsure whether this was salvation or a hallucination birthed by loneliness. "I'm Jonah," he finally rasped, voice rough from years of SOS calls for help. "Last man standing. Far as I know." The figure tilted their head, as if processing his words. Then, slowly, they removed their helmet. A woman's face emerged sharp, fierce, and undeniably human. Her eyes, dark and unyielding, locked onto his. "Not anymore," she said quietly. Jonah stared, disbelief warring with hope. The fire behind him flickered higher, embers spiraling into the night sky. For the first time in years, the weight crushing his chest eased just a little. Maybe the world wasn't finished with humanity after all.